I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cerrone,
Here.
Ms. Doyle,
Here.
Mr. Gatewood,
Present.
Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Ploger,
Present.
Ms. Simulton,
Present.
Ms. Swanson.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 4.1 is an opportunity for the board to recognize our teachers and staff for our Pride Awards. So if you'll join me up front, that would be appreciated.
Tonight, the Board of Education acknowledges Pride winners for the month of April 2023. Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education implemented this program in the fall of 2015 to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across our district. Teachers of the Month are sponsored by Allied First Bank. This recognizes what our teachers do day in and day out for the continued growth and success of our students. Awardees, as your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Sparlin. Congratulations to the following teachers for having been recognized as April Teachers of the Month. Kim Kasten, second grade teacher at Wolf's Crossing. Lori Johnson, special education teacher, Benarsic Junior High. Paul Kidler, special education teacher at Oswego East High School. And John Temez, an avid teacher at Plank Junior High. At this time, we'll invite any of our administrators that are here this evening to come join our awardees and the board for a photo. Congratulations, teachers. The next awardees this evening are the April Employees of the Month, co-sponsored by Chick-fil-A and Huntington Learning Center. This award is given in appreciation of employees who go above and beyond and who are always willing to lend a hand. Awardees, as your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Sparlin. Congratulations to our April Employees of the Month, Lois Goulet-Federer and Georgie Hetzel. These ladies are from Oswego East. Congratulations. Congratulations, ladies. We're going to invite Laura to come up and join you for a photo. Congratulations, ladies. We thank our generous district sponsors, Allied First Bank, Chick-fil-A, Huntington Learning Center, and Culver's for helping us to make this program a success, and we thank all of those who nominate individuals. This is our final recognition for this school year, so we ask you to stay tuned for the program next year.
one, public comment. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our residents and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Residents interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and that no discussion of personnel matters or responses to questions are permitted. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Follow-up to your questions or concerns will be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Lillian Driscoll.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening,
evening.
Mr. Sparling and board members. My name is Lillian Mata Driscoll. I have been an active parent in SD308 community these past 18 years. I am a mother of 6 children that have been part of the dual language program. My youngest 2 are currently enrolled in DL. I came to SD308 because it was ranked one of the top school districts in our area, and it had opened a pilot program known as dual language. I know firsthand what an amazing program we have in our hands as a district. I also know that it has been our struggle to keep the district leadership informed on how DL program runs, but also pushing for it to be more equitable. We find ourselves once again faced with a situation of our full-time bilingual reading support for DL being pulled from Hunt Club to a half-time position in between both of our DL schools. We have known that our Boulder Hill school has needs, and we should definitely be putting those supports in place for DL. Why has it been a struggle for our district to do the right thing for our students? After meeting with Delaquist and Renee Wednesday, we voiced concerns on how the decision would greatly be disservice to our students. It was a gut-wrenching feeling once again, a repeat feeling of 2015 school year. Those that were here then know. I kind of was given, felt like to share an analogy, the solution that was given. It's like having a pair of shoes and seeing a need, a person in need that has no shoes, and giving one of your shoes so that now you each have one shoe, which doesn't make sense. There has been much growth in this program every year, and we still do not make it a priority. Our classrooms are busting at the seams, which clearly shows there's a need. I have come to you today to see what needs to be done to make this right. Teachers have been working to exhaustion, and as a parent, I'm here to show support for the students. We cannot accept this plan for the upcoming year. It's not right. So, Mr. Sparling, I have faith that you will stand by our SD308 students. Thank you for your time. I look forward to working as a team and coming to a better solution that is not hurting our students' education.
Thank you.
Wayne Harshberger.
Good morning, or good evening. Wayne Harshberger, 457 Baroque Drive. I've got 2 graduates from the district and currently have a junior at one of the high schools. Our saga that I've talked about before really started back in 8th grade when we were told, oh, well, she's got good grades. You got to understand my wife's involved in special education and testing. And classroom teachers had leading indicators that said something needed to be done, but we were ignored. We then encountered a bullying issue in that 8th grade classroom when someone told my daughter, why don't you just kill yourself? I didn't realize at the time the dramatic impact of that experience would have on her mental health until last spring. She wrote out a note to one of the high school social workers. I have no idea it was written, but the fact the social worker and my wife destroyed it before I could see it told me everything I needed to know. Let's fast forward to spring of 2022 now, okay? So in the fall of 21, went through a lot of life experiences. Lost both my parents, lost Uncle Matt, who used to come over to our house a lot and spend a lot of time with the kids. So we had a lot of life experiences in the house. My daughter suffers from things that need a 504, okay? It's needed. We were pushed by the team to do a complete all-in IEP evaluation, in spite of the team knowing all the life events that we had already communicated. In fact, we had asked the team a long time ago, her freshman year, to start tracking all these incidents. So we had this wonderful spreadsheet with all the instances, dates, times, how long it goes on. We have everything. That spreadsheet was used against us as a reason to do an all-in IEP. We said no, but in the fall we said, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Well, this is our experience. So back in 8th grade, no problem, don't need to do anything. Then we get to the district saying, you got to do something. The form that came home, not filled out right. Okay. My wife's comment is, I wish we could get away with a form that was poorly written. There was no why. The why was missing. Okay. That's really an ISBE violation. And then when we got through the whole evaluation, you're supposed to get all the paperwork that goes in the domain 3 days prior to the meeting. Legally, you're supposed to get it 3 days. Partial information provided. We called the team on it, okay? Dr. Hildebrand got involved, she's aware of it, admitted the errors. They scrambled to fix it. It wasn't done right. They didn't follow it per the domain, okay? So in the process, we've had to get an advocate involved. The district has now had to spend money to go get an outside evaluation done, okay? So why am I here? Why am I here? Let's get into that. So some issues, blindly pushing back on the need for a 504 back in 8th grade. So nope, no issue, don't need to do anything. Let's fast forward to the recent events. Nope, you got to do something, reluctantly agree. Form not filled out right, evaluation not done right. It's just a lack of execution. So I could have submitted probably 2 or 3 of these to the state and had the state investigate these complaints. Instead, I'm coming here to present this to you to maybe ask the team to reflect on what's going on and under your purview, not the state, actually try to make some improvements, okay? It's lack of execution. Quite simply, lack of execution. I understand there's challenges from budget and staffing, okay? But what's the true cost of screwing this up? Now we're redoing things. Now you're having to pay for an outside people to do evaluation. What's the true cost of this? What is the real cost? Think about that. The other question I really have is, so my wife and I are educated. We know what was supposed to happen. So how many other families in the district are going through this type of process and the district's not doing it right? But the parents and guardians don't know that. And then What happens when it's not done right and the services that the student is due are not being provided? There's a bigger problem here. And talking to my colleagues I work with students across multiple schools, I think you've got some problems beyond just our family.
Thank you.
Item 6.1 is an informational presentation on professional development, and Mrs. Dahlquist is going to lead us in that.
Thank you. Thank you, because it's working. All right. This is just the summary of the annual report. The annual report in its entirety is linked to board docs and will be into our district website shortly. The highlight of this is that our goal by 2026 and in Vision 308 is an annual 3-year plan, as well as the piece of professional development based on feedback, and then everything around what we do, we follow our expectations for engagement, which is part of the Climate for Learning framework. So we're really pushing to have a lot of engagement, collaborative structures, and inquiry, even with the training with our staff, to model the type of instruction that we want with our students. The left-hand side, if you scroll down just a little bit for everybody, is the indicators of success that we had agreed upon last time around for our August, for our meeting here. And we had a 3-year professional development plan would be part of those, and then really basing that off of our walkthrough data. So I'm proud to say that this year we've had nearly 2,000 classrooms that we have visited as a team to look and see how we're doing. So this is not an evaluation of teachers when we go in and do this. This is to see how we are doing at providing professional development to impact change. The entire piece, our 3-year plan, is linked up there, and I want to emphasize that we base all of that on our model for managing complex change, which first is having a vision for what it is that we want, and then putting in the why or the incentive, plus providing skills to do that and resources to do that, all of that combined into an action plan. So our first part of our work was really around creating vision, and that was completed for most parts last year. And then the vision part for our Climate for Learning that was really focused on this year was around behavioral expectations. The other link in there is just the archive. If you look at all of the trainings that members of executive leadership team have done and provided to various groups, you might be interested to see all that we've done in the last school year. So those next pieces around that vision component, as I said, we now have everybody, all schools have K-12 expectations for behavior and what that looks like, and that vision piece, now really working on the skills and the resources to go along with that. And then our work continuing is the vision for supportive discipline and what that would look like, as well as having our behavioral design team, which I want to just remind the board that we have a district improvement team that has several different teams that report to it. The K-12 SEL team and the K-12 behavioral design team are important parts of that. And you can see kind of the work that we have done so far, as well as some of our work that we're wanting to continue in the next pieces. If you scroll down a little bit more. So that's the indicators of success that we'd like to report to the board for next year. We'll come back at this with the 3-year plan and the next steps that are needed to go through that. We'll base that again off of data such as student achievement data, staff surveys like we did this year. We now have an annual staff survey that we give, and then our walkthrough pieces, and we'd like to incorporate student surveys next year as well. And then a second component of that is establishing a system of data collection for the effectiveness of student behavior using our new student information system and helping teams do that. And then finally, the board asks us to draw correlations to this work to those 4 areas. I want to remind everyone that whatever we can do to improve instruction, it does help us out frequently for costly interventions later on. So that is a piece as we get better at our craft that can help
save money as well as save students and getting better at what we need to do. Obviously, the tie-in with student learning is pretty self-explanatory, as well as support for student learning. And then community partnerships, we continue to look for ways to do that, but we also have to make sure that our staff has enough professional development and the resources that they could do to be able to go beyond that to community partnerships. Are there any questions?
I just have a question about the number of participants of the survey. Do we typically see something that low?
No, this year it was particularly low. The year before that, we were over 600. This year we had quite a few less.
Have you looked into like redoing this or doing another version of the survey to try to get more input to see where you can see the trends across maybe elementary, junior high?
So some of the things that the work with the instructional coaches are at those particular areas, or even at the junior high level for departments, they're seeking that input, but geared just toward junior high math teachers or just toward high school social studies as we get ready to do those pieces. And we find we get a lot of meaningful impact there, in addition to the K-12, everybody taking the survey.
Okay.
What is our philosophy on professional development facilitation? Like, is it all done in-house? Do we do anything outside of the district?
We do some of both. We do a lot of the in-house. That is definitely more cost, if you're thinking about cost, to be able to do it that way. But we have brought in experts and looked at that. We've also brought in a lot of books where we're using expertise from others to do study groups. So more in-house than not, but we have done some pieces. We also have just sent a group of staff to another district to see how they're doing with instruction, or going to visit them of what they're looking at doing for supportive discipline or engagement. So combinations.
And so the results of your walkthroughs reflect what?
So the results of the walkthroughs, and I have different feedback at different levels of what that looks like. One of the big pushes this year has been collaborative structures and engagement, and we are seeing more of that in general at all of the levels, but we're not yet where we want to be with that. So one of the things that we did when we talked amongst the leaders here, and then also with our union leadership committee where we talk about initiatives, is we pared down what it is that we were going to try to move forward next year in order to revisit that and get it where we want it to be. We have seen an increase in math vocabulary instruction, both at the elementary and junior high level, where that's been a big push. We've continued to see more classrooms implementing the independent reading portion, and then we're beginning to see more people skilled in small group instruction and reading, but as we did our walkthroughs, we realized we need to provide more support and more resources to be able to do that. So that's something that we are revisiting and kind of doubling back on to make sure that that's in place before we go on to another subject. Inquiry process, we're seeing more of that, especially with social studies at the elementary level, but really excited about some of the junior high math things that we're seeing where there are big whiteboards up and students are working in groups and solving more critical thinking questions, where there's a lot more application of the math skills at a higher level. And that's the kind of thing that we would really like to see. Learning targets were a focus at the high school and are seeing a lot more learning targets, but we need to generally work on the quality of the learning targets. Sure.
I have one last question. What is the reasoning or rationale behind non-certified personnel doing walkthroughs?
Non-certified people doing walkthroughs. What are you referring to?
I don't want to say names, but I've just heard that there were many people in walkthroughs that were non-Pell holding or non-certified.
The only time that I'm aware of that is I am having district leaders that go on walkthroughs so that they know what we're talking about when we're looking at instruction. I want everyone to have be able to talk about the Climate for Learning framework and see it in action. So the only people that I can think of that would be non-certified would have been district staff that always go along with a buddy and have walked classrooms with me and others.
Good evening, Board. I have a few announcements for tonight. I'd like to start off by congratulating Aaron Holtz and many of the OHS student participants at an outstanding Southwest Prairie Conference Literacy Festival competition on Saturday, April 15th. OHS not only took home the most awards of any school for team, but they earned the top honors in both poetry and first place and several other first place awards. April is Autism Awareness Month. Each year during the month of April, individuals and organizations across the world celebrate Autism Awareness Month, which began in 1950. We use this time to provide resources to deepen understanding and raise awareness and acceptance of students with autism, celebrating differences and encouraging inclusion. Recently, on National Encourage a Young Writer Day, April 10th, Boulder Hill Elementary School held a book signing event for two of its students, Evelyn Mendoza and Jeremiah Smith-Jones, celebrating them for each having published their first books over the summer of 2022. It's very exciting. So I encourage you to visit our district website to hear more about these fantastic young authors, and congratulations to Evelyn and Jeremiah. Those are two elementary kids with published books this summer. Yes.
I'm feeling a little slacky, yeah.
Yes.
What are you doing at that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't
I do
publishing a
now.
book. Right. I'm also happy to say that Garrett Forward Robotics, Oswego 2338, made it to the finals at the World Championship Robotics Competition in Houston, Texas this last weekend. Out of over 3,200 robotic teams worldwide and over 600 who qualified and competed at the World Championship, they finished 64th, which is incredible. So congratulations to this very talented group of students and their coaches.
In the world.
And yes, those are the world competitions. And finally, I'd like to share that our annual student-led Amplify event is on May 1st from 6 to 8:30 at Oswego High School. The event will feature student works and expressions in an environment celebrating diversity and inclusion. I'm sure it will be a great night, and we hope to see everyone there. Mrs. Hamilton, that is my report for this evening. Thank you. By all means.
And speaking of students, 7.2, student ambassador report.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I guess Caitlin and I are really excited to announce that the student survey that we were working on this past year was released on Thursday. We're currently clocking in at 2,208 responses.
Wow.
We were really excited about that. We were actually kind of concerned that we'd have to push out the deadline.
Anya, what was that number?
2,208.
Thank you.
And that's among the Oswego High School and Oswego East High School, and we're currently looking for other schools as well who will contribute to the survey. Overall, it was a really good mix of multiple choice and free response answers. We definitely took a bit of a turn this time and added more free response to give students that expression. We do want to analyze how that turned out this time, and we're going to be working on disaggregating that data later on in the future. But I think, Caitlin, do you have any general trends that you want to just disclose before we meet with the SSAC?
Yeah, so as Anya said, we have a lot of responses so far, which is really exciting, and it shows that people really want to be involved and have their voices heard. We found data about the sexual harassment presentations and the work that was all done by the SSAC last year. We have updated questions and data about that. And Anya and I were just looking at all this data before, and there were lots of surprises, and there are things that I think really need to get worked on in the district, and we are very eager to go over them with the SSAC to work towards some of fixing those.
Thank you very much. Okay, 7.3, board committee reports. We'll start with policy and legislative, and then go on to teaching and learning. Wanted to just see if any of our board members had any questions about the documents that were uploaded to board docs as part of our community information. You can find the reports for policy and legislative and teaching and learning in board docs if you have any questions. So it's documented there for you. And so, do you have any questions about either of those?
If you have any questions about the draft, it is still a work in progress, but pretty darn close. Ursula, Dr. Kincaid, you did an excellent job of summarizing and putting together all that work, so thank you so much. Did anybody have any questions?
On the draft that we're gonna go over that later on, right?
Yeah, that's item 9.2 under
So I'll-
information.
I have,
Yeah, I'll wait till then.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions on the board committee reports?
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yes, 7.4, board member comments. Any board member comments? No? I would like, oh, go ahead.
Please,
No, no, well,
no, I want you to go first.
I just want to acknowledge the work of the policy committee and the two co-chairs, Jen Johnson and Ally Swanson, for all of the work that was done. And I don't want to forget to say to our administrators who also worked on this process, the nights and the long hours, it's mind-boggling, the time that was spent, but it's also going to be a benefit to our community and our district to have gone over all of those policies. And so I want to thank the board also for acknowledging the effort that it would take and the opportunity that we had to purchase Press Plus in order to achieve the work that was done. And so I think there's a round of applause required for everyone involved in that effort.
Okay, I am excited for our future. So I didn't prepare comments tonight. I just wanted to say two things, and then I'm going to defer the rest of my time. We are coming to the end of our first full year of school after 3 years of figuring out and pivoting during the pandemic. And I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of our teachers lately, and they're tired, and our students are tired, and I think we're all ready for summer if the weather would catch up. So with Teacher Appreciation just around the corner, I just ask all of our parents and our community members to thank a teacher and remind them of the fact that they really do make the world go round, because they need that boost right now to get through the end of the school year. So I just wanted to share that. One of the other things is that it is an honor to sit up here and to be the voice of community members, of our educators, our administrators, but mostly of our students. And I've had an incredible honor of getting to know Anya and Caitlin through this year. And Caitlin came to me and asked me if I would sit down and talk to her about a speech that she wanted to submit. The seniors can submit speeches. And it was incredibly compelling, and I asked her to push herself outside of her comfort zone and share it with us tonight.
Oh, right now? Okay.
well,
Okay.
Speak
It's
loudly.
it's a little long, so just bear with me. I remember when I was in kindergarten, the day I brought my first backpack to school. It was blue, sparkly, and had Tinkerbell on the back, and I showed it to all my new friends with as much pride as a kindergartner can have. I like to think this was slightly a universal experience, getting a new backpack and excitedly showing it to your class on the first day of school. Well, we're in high school now. My backpack is no longer blue or sparkly, and it is so much heavier. People tell me all the time that my straps hang too low and my bag is too heavy, but nevertheless, it has everything I need. I basically live out of it from August to May. So if you haven't guessed by now, I want to tell you a little bit about my backpack. When we were told that we were the class of 2023 way back when we were younger, I sure did not know what that meant. It doesn't even feel like that long ago when we were greeted as the class of 2023. But here we are, it's 2023, and I wish the time had gone a little bit slower. But back to the backpacks. Because when I was younger and perhaps could have been contemplating what class of 2023 even meant, all I worried about was what was in my backpack. Along our educational journey, we have put a lot of stuff inside our bags, and I'd like to share with you just a few. In most backpacks, we carry pencils, notebooks, binders, and a lot of stray papers. but I can confidently say that the weight of our backpacks also holds resilience, growth, opportunity, and adaptation. These are all positive things that we have in our backpacks. As you all know, not everything has been perfect. Along our journey, there have been many things that we have been forced to carry in our backpacks. Broken promises, family issues, friendship highs and lows, health problems, and one of the biggest for most of us, COVID. We couldn't have avoided all of these, but we've had to overcome them anyway. And we could have avoided some of them, but part of growing up is making mistakes and learning from them. On the way, we have gained skills that will help us in the future. When we walked into OHS 4 years ago, we were all anticipating that we had 4 years to make our high school experience unforgettable. For many of us, that did not go quite as planned, as our high school lives were intercepted with so many unexpected turns. However, I think it has made us strong and allowed us to become resilient. And while we take on this weight and make light of it, we must learn to take out the needless things that put us down. Others' opinions of ourselves, the unrealistic expectations set by some of our parents, teachers, or other people in society. Our backpacks may hold school supplies, but with the weight of that comes a degree of growth that I want to believe has changed us and our society for the better. Despite everyone being so worried about how we carry our backpacks and what's inside, I think my straps are just fine.
And Anya edited and gave feedback as well, so it was a group effort.
Thank you guys so much. That's beautiful. And were you going to present it or? Okay, I love it.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, we're moving on to, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
one more. I think this is kind of going to be your last swan song, so I wanted to. Yeah, so
Sorry.
I wanted to.
Next week, they're going to be here next week.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it, but there'll be a lot of yes, but.
No, you go.
Yeah, please. Yeah, because number one, and number two, having gone through this before, it's a lot more about who's coming in. So really, this meeting is the time where we really should recognize them. And so thank you, Allie, and thank you, Lori, for your service to the community. It's greatly appreciated. Obviously, we as fellow board members know the time and the commitment that goes into that. So thank you. And, you will, I'll miss our conversations and our back and forth. Believe it or not. Yes, I will. And no matter what, you put yourselves out there, and you decided to represent the community, and that's greatly appreciated. So thank you for your courage.
Yay. We're almost done. We're so glad to have completed this years of service.
Yeah, you were counting down the days.
We were.
And well, we have something planned for you guys for next week, so don't make me feel bad. You're going to be here, Allie, right?
It's debatable.
Oh.
I feel like it's time for me to miss a meeting finally.
No. All right. 8.1, consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, if no questions, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including minutes of the Board of Education meeting from April 11th, 2023, open and closed session, and to acknowledge the FOIA request received by the district.
Second.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 9.1 is the Consolidated District Action Plan, and Mrs. Dahlquist will present.
Thank you again. This is just a summary. There's a lot more details in the memo that was sent. Every year at this time, it's a state requirement that we create a consolidated district plan, and that sets off the process for all of the different grants that are managed through the state. And I just wanted to remind people, we throw around these terms, Title I, Title IV, all this, what this means. So this is just explaining what the purpose of each of those types of grants are, and we'll be in the process very soon as we get our allocations from the state, once this is done, to begin writing these pieces. So if you're ever wanting to look into what are the name of the grants and what they're for, that's on this page. This next is just what our annual amounts have been. This is not something that is always predetermined. You wait until your allocations come in, and then you begin writing that process. So there's some similarity, but the amounts do change somewhat over time. And then lastly, just some of the evidence that we have to present as part of the consolidated district plan is that we've looked at coordination between all of those grants that are listed, so there is an overlap and that we're focusing on similar things. And then we've done a needs assessment with the staff and having stakeholders and teams in process for what this looks like. It needs to be aligned to both the district goals and to the state. And then there are also some financial things like auditing processes, and we also are required to coordinate with private schools on these funding amounts too. Any questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
What I know this probably isn't included, but can you talk to me about where are we at, or other grants that we might be looking into? I know they're probably matching grants, but
Sure. So the ones that I've been speaking to tonight are those that are run through the state
Sure.
and federal grants, but we do look at competitive grants or other pieces. Sometimes there's great alignment with our district, sometimes there is not. I know Dr. Kincaid sends a monthly piece of those that we're looking at to inform the board, and we do bring many opportunities to cabinet and then look at whether there is a good match and then divide up who could write or whether it meets the needs. So again, the consolidated district plan isn't a requirement from all grants, it's just by those that come through the state.
and recently I had I'll just leave it as an elected official who was inquiring about some grants, and the one thing I'll say publicly, you know, I've never heard of a grant that was a bad idea that I'm aware of when it's, you know, money that's coming into us. But, you know, we sit up here and we see and we know and we're aware of the fact that we need resources. And usually, I don't want to say all the time, but a large proportion of the time, many of the complaints we deal with, we can look back and we can say, yeah, we're aware of the resources we need, and we're aware that many times when we have a lack of resources, it leads to problems. And so my message to that elected official was, that's great. When we talk about the resources we need, we would appreciate not hearing crickets. Help us, right? So when I read in the press about being lambasted about simply doing what every other district around us does when it comes to resources, it would be great to hear from those elected officials instead of, oh, that's not us, that's them. If you're going to ask us to look into grants, then help us. So that's what I'll say publicly about that.
Are any other questions for Mrs. Dahlquist?
This is totally random, but it just popped into my head because of what Jared was saying. But there's two things that I wonder. Can we put some sort of, like, Teresa, like a little grant dashboard up on our website that just says the ones we've applied for and what we've gotten and not gotten? And I'm wondering because our administrators put a huge grant together, spent hours and hours and hours, and what it was not awarded. And so we get questions a lot and they get questioned a lot, and I don't think anybody realizes the amount of work that they do put into these grants, and that we just are not chosen for them because they're federal grants and they go to other schools that maybe were needy. But I get personally very protective because I know that those are being worked on and that they fall through, and it's to no fault of our own. But I think that would be good for the community to see. But also, Jared, about the policy and legislative committee, is there a way to work in next year now that we've done this huge project that needed to be done, to maybe discuss more legislative of the policy committee and start to work with is that a use of our?
My suggestion is that you divide them again. I don't think policy and legislative should have ever come together.
Well, I didn't do that.
Oh, I'm not saying you did.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't blaming you.
Yeah.
You brought it up. My suggestion would be to divide them.
I think there are a lot of opportunities to do work in the legislative area in building relationships with our officials at the state and county and city, municipal levels.
Counties, yeah.
There's so much that can be done, and so we have talked about that in our meetings, and we've asked Dr. Sparlin to put together a list of all the opportunities that are available, and then let's come together and as a board decide on what that could look like, because I think that's a really good idea. And I know Jared had mentioned it before too as well, so. Yeah. So regarding.
Does that,
oh.
can I just ask, and I'm not super experienced in this, but does it necessarily potentially negatively impact the ability to get grants if the people issuing the grants know that we're going to advertise whether or not we get it? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes people can get a little
I don't know
more
if the
inclined to
federal
say
government
no
is looking
if.
at SD308's website, though.
Okay.
I mean, I honestly don't know. There's obviously regional, local, maybe that looks different, but for the mental health one that was millions of dollars, I'm pretty sure the U.S. Department of Education is not.
They wouldn't care.
At,
No, you're right. Yeah.
at our website, but that's something definitely to think of. But for a transparency point for our community, we get FOIA'd all the time for it. It would be nice to show. We do not have a dedicated grant writer. Our admins do this as bonus work. So, I mean,
We had. I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't anymore.
and
Gotcha.
so we get questioned a lot, and it's well, we can dedicate somebody to do that, and then when cuts get made, that's typically where we go first. So, I would just wanted to get notoriety for, that's not the right word at all. I want to get recognition for our administrators that have done this, and that grant took a lot of hours. The board was involved, our elected officials were involved, and it fell through, but there's so many of those grants, and I would like the community to see that. And since they're doing the work, it's just pop it up there, on the screen, pass it over to Teresa and so forth. But also, if we could pivot to maybe helping our admin and, using our committee, which is the admin. I don't know if that'll work, but any way we can help you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, on to 10.1.
9.2.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Go ahead.
Item 9.2 is a draft of the Board of Education Policy Manual, and Dr. Kincaid, why don't you guide us through the conversation?
Absolutely. So you should all have a memo attached within your documents. As we've discussed the ongoing process, we started a few months ago. We've been working as a committee with a representative from press, really to evaluate not only section by section, but every policy. Our first lens was the alignment with press, and then was there anything from our current policy that we needed to bring over? But ideally, we wanted to be in alignment as much as we could with press. As we went through the process, part of the conversation also was regarding the exhibits, the administrative procedures. We have had some of our admin procedures, it's been quite a few years since they've been reviewed. So what you also have attached in your documents is the chart that is aligning all of those. So you have access to not only the policy, our proposal for the draft, any current proposed or upcoming proposals of exhibits related to the policies, in addition the administrative procedures, and then additionally we've also linked any policy that is referenced to students' rights and responsibilities. So you can see the progression from the public view of board policy to the admin procedures. Because we thought that that was important to review a lot of our policies as we move to press. What we would potentially have been removing was administrative procedure information. It was a lot of fine detail that was within our policy that needed to be present within our procedures. But through discussions with community advisory and with our team as the policy committee, we really wanted to see it not only from the board level, but then the implementation in our schools to the connection to the students. So that's why we wanted you to have the entire picture, kind of from start to finish. With
Dr.
that,
Kincaid,
we are, as was
can I
mentioned
also
earlier, we
can
are
I also
still in
say
draft.
that you focused very much on, for myself and Allie, but also for the administration, what is really policy, what is really procedure, and what is really practice. And we found a lot of our policies were not policies. And so that was, I think, the second part of our overall goal, was to really make sure that our policy manual was a policy manual. And so we had some policies that we hadn't reviewed since 2007, 2009. So that was the other part of it that was incredibly important, as well as tying all the documents together.
So today we just wanted you to have access to all of our current drafts. So in the document that was shared at the very top of each section, you have what the proposed draft is of the policy manual. You also have a link to the current policies. You have a summary of what the changes were, and then you have either the current proposal for exhibits and APs, or a yes, it's a plan. So there were quite a few, and we'll be working on those in the upcoming months.
I don't have a question, but I spent a little time going through it, just reading, and I know we've said it already about the amount of time and effort that you put into it, but I think equally as important and appreciated is actually how you even presented the information, because it's been fairly easy for me to follow, and any question that I had, I was able to find the answer. So thank you.
That's Ursula and Dr. Kincaid all the way.
So, I don't have a problem with any of this except one thing. And I think maybe the historical, and I don't know if you were going to go there or not, but maybe the historical piece is important here, and that was 425. And I'm not surprised you didn't find it in press, because you wouldn't find it in press. But I have a problem with us looking at that one, and I have a problem with us eliminating it, and I think we need to have a deeper discussion on it, and I think it's the board that needs to discuss this, because while the prospect of this happening again are probably slim, I think we need to be careful of the message that we send to the community. And Lori, I'm glad this is coming up before you're leaving, because the board, when they decided to put this in policy, purposely put this in policy because they wanted to make sure that they sent a message to the community that they were taking this matter very seriously. And that was, it was a commitment. It was a commitment at the time from the board that the concept of any type of sales tax that would be passed by the school district was specifically put in place to bring property tax relief for property owners of the school district. And the reason it was put into policy was to show that we were serious about that, right? And while I understand the desire to allow a future board to take this into consideration, my fear in taking this away is we send the message that the policy really can just be done away with at any point, and if this matter is brought up, we're going to end up having the same debate, and we're going to have the same challenges. It would seem very much more desirable to leave the policy and have a future board debate it at another time, if in fact this ever comes up again. I think we undermine that conversation that occurred in the past. And I think there will be elements that you hear from, and you are going to create distrust for a future board if we ever have to bring this up again and we have to go this route. I think it's far more advantageous to say, if we need this for something else, to have that debate at a future time and leave that policy in place. I understand the counter argument is going to be it's more procedural than anything else, but that board was very serious and the community was very serious at the time that they needed to see it in a policy, and that's why it was placed there. And Lori, I'm sure you can anything that I missed or anything on that.
I just want to make a point of clarification. We were a committee, so if we may have had dissenting opinions.
I'm not blaming anyone.
Hold
I
on,
want to make sure
Jared.
that we have historical context, and I want to bring that up. That's all.
Right, but I needed to make a point of clarity that we were a committee, and what is brought forward in front of you is what the committee is recommending, realizing that the board makes the final decision.
I know that.
So this is a lot of policies to chew at one time. I love the format. I'm so appreciative for it. The one thing about the sales tax, and just want to clarify that what this was, for people listening that might not remember, that if we asked for an increase in sales tax, we would use that to abate property tax. This was an opportunity that we would have had separate from an operating referendum to actually reduce property tax. It wasn't appreciated by some other municipal organizations who wanted their own property tax. So again, any kind of safeguards we can put in to make sure that we don't get in the financial position we were in before, and to give us opportunities to make sure that we actually use this for property tax relief in the future, I'd really rather leave in. Having been through it, it was not something that's worth having to argue all over again just to put it in place. It was.
I don't disagree necessarily. Again,
totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, is it a policy? No. Have we left other things in here that aren't necessarily policies? Yes, because we had a committee that met and felt very strongly about it. I have another one to bring up. But I also believe strongly that your board attorney should always bring that forward and, make that public when it comes to, and we have to lean on our subject matter experts too when it comes to sales tax and sales receipts. So this was discussed, and all of those points of view were brought forward, and it's here where it needs to be now.
No, I don't think anybody's debating like that piece. It's just that here it is, and so we need to make sure that as board members who were there during it, we strongly push. I don't want to speak for Lori, but at least for me, I strongly push that I'm against it. It needs to stay. So that is my perspective, and having lived through it, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and the recommendation, from my point of view, was only because the committee was asking, do we need it, and can we just align with press? And I said, yes, you can align with press, if that's the interest of the board. So I am not saying legally you should get rid of it. You may keep it. It's at your will.
So I have one question. Now, question in regards to next steps. Because I did have the one thing that's jumped out to me were the ones in blue, of course, the ones where it was a recommendation to remove it. Some of them gave the reason why, some it would be, I had to dig a little bit deeper. But my question is, when we are going in our next steps to approve these, are we going to approve these by section, or are we just going to vote on the entire thing?
I mean, that's a lot of policies to vote on at one time.
That's why I'm asking.
I mean, I don't have to do it, but for you that have to,
that's
a lot.
The reason why it would be very difficult for me to give a blanket approval for everything, and so I'm just wondering what will our next steps be, or do we have to discuss?
I would imagine, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that like if you would bring it as is, and I would sit there and make a motion to, leave policy 425 in there, and then it would pass or it wouldn't pass, and then if it doesn't pass and I don't like it, then I'd vote accordingly. That would be my assumption, and then I would assume if there's something you wanted, let's say hazing, which gave an explanation.
Yeah.
right, then you would do the same thing, right? That's my assumption, but I could be wrong.
Yes.
All right,
That
just
is
wanted to make
correct.
sure.
Well,
It
but-
is a lot of. You might want to break it out by section
that's-
and do a section a meeting.
It would take a long time, I guess, to prove it.
Again, that was up for discussion as well, because I believe that is one of our main priorities as a board, is governance and policy making. So I think it bears, some of these bear the opportunity, and I shared with Dr. Kincaid and Mr. Bell that I want, if we are gonna delete this, I need the board to know that the recommendation was to delete it, because maybe we didn't agree with it, so,
And
I think-
2:8:1 also.
So I think the way we had envisioned it was that over the next 2 weeks, we were going to review all of these policies, and that we were going to vote on them prior to Ally and Lori.
We don't have to do that on our account.
Nope, not necessary, but thank you so much.
I think what would help some of you guys with some of these is, I know some of the explanations were there, but sometimes just reaching out to either Heather or Jeremy and just saying, hey, what was the thought behind? Because a lot of these, we had very similar questions as we were sitting there, and I think everybody in the room came at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So some of it was to ease up some restrictions they were having, some of it was to tighten some restrictions they were having, right? And a lot of it was, kind of district specific. So I think I think it would be a great idea if you, circle the ones you're not sure about and give them a call.
That's a good idea. The one other question I would ask that I think would be
2:1 and also
helpful
the 281.
is, I know that there was something broken out for, and I guess that's not, never mind. Well, I'll say it.
Yeah.
The policies, we're going over policies, and I understand that's our responsibility. But in order to have consistency across the district, the practices and the procedures, I just want to read them. So just what was there, because I think it'll give context to some of the policies in my mind to give me the assurance that, oh, this is covered, but I'm only seeing one part of it. So
In
I
all
think,
fairness, some of those are being all rewritten by Dr. Kincaid.
Yes,
'Cause
So and
what
and-
is there currently is not,
There isn't.
oh, I got
is
you.
not, the
And
nicest
here's
way
the
to be would be up
reality,
to
this
date.
is the bigger reality, and we were trying to share this with Dr. Sparlin. Our administrators get, I don't want to make a blanket statement, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but they are doing this outside of
No, I
their
get it.
typical work hours.
I get it.
They typically get somewhat compensated for it. This was above and beyond all of that.
Got it.
Press offers the service of writing an AP manual for us. They will not have that service till 2024.
Got
And
it.
Dr. Kincaid said, that's not acceptable. We need this now. I'm going to do it on my own. So she is taking that on. We have encouraged her to take as much time as she needs, but she is going to do what she wants and have it done.
And please, by
for the
no
new-
means am I saying I want that in 2 weeks. So please, so please know that I'm not saying that.
I think this is now becomes the historical document of the administration has told us there will be an AP manual.
Got it.
And I would ask that they share it with the board. They don't need our approval, but if you
Correct.
could share it with
Not
the board.
approval.
Yeah.
Not
So then, okay, so then how do we want, what do
So-
we want May 8th to look like in terms of voting?
Well, and I gotta be honest with you. Let me ask the question this way. What access are new board members going to have to the packet? Are they going to have full access to the packet? Are you planning on putting a lot? I mean, I'm just remembering back to my first meeting and.
Jared, if we're going to bring this back for any kind of vote, it would be done by this current board, and then we would do the restructuring and move forward.
I'm not comfortable voting on as an outgoing board member. I would want to have new board members. This is a massive policy vote.
It is.
I would want new board members to have time to digest all of these policies as they're getting onboarded and vote on it, because they have to live by these policies.
So, is there some deadline that we're up against? Is there anything?
I don't know why I had to go to so many meetings. Why we all had to go to.
Because you love your
Trying to get
community.
it done before I left for some ungodly known reason to me
That's
right
what I
now.
was thinking.
We were meeting
There's no
so
deadline.
long and so many times.
Allie provided an incredible history for things that we had no idea why they were policies, and she was able to give, and we wanted to capture that. And we actually thought having her create the draft and then having maybe the new board members review could help now that Dr. Kincaid and I and Jeremy also have
Then certainly don't vote on it on
more
the 8th.
perspective.
Okay, so then
This
this
is
will
a
not be
big
up for
thing.
vote on May 8th. We'll take some time when the new board members
This might be a good,
are seated.
it might be a good piece to vote on, to be honest with you, it might be a good piece to vote on July 1st when we do a board retreat, so that we also have the new superintendent
Way
here
too
as
long.
well.
Well, let me ask
Well,
this.
Because
How
it-
much of this
they
do
have
you
to-
guys
they
need
have
for
to
this,
work
for
based
the,
on what we approve.
we need
We
some
have
of this for
policies.
drawing a blank.
Student rights and
manual.
responsibilities.
Yes, thank
I
you,
would
that.
Okay,
say
so which
leave
sections?
section
Yeah.
2, which is the board section specifically. Any of these sections that primarily don't require procedural pieces, but that are actually like, how is this district going to run? You should probably wait on the new ones. If there's some that are more procedural, perhaps pull those to vote earlier.
I totally
Can we-
agree.
can we
Jeremy
ask
has to
them?
get
They
the
would know.
students' rights and responsibilities passed
Yeah,
through.
that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
student section of this needs to be approved,
Seven?
section 7, sooner rather than later.
That feels
And the
good.
rest of it, I totally agree with you.
May 8th?
We can take more time with, but their
May 8th.
their dependency on what their next step is in their jobs requires us to.
Yes.
Okay, so bring forth the students' rights and responsibilities.
Section
piece
7.
They can have my packet.
For May 8th.
Have it done.
And then the rest, we will work toward a date after our new board members are seated.
We got it.
All right.
Dr. Kincaid, does that work for you?
Faith, do you need anything from section 6 to move forward? Definitely section 7, especially as we talk about the beginning of the school year.
Yes.
So we have some changes to section 7, or policy 7100, about first day exclusion. So there are some things in 7 that we would, the May 8th, at least on section 7, would be very helpful. But you're okay. So section 7, and then if we want to move to June for the remaining, that would be fine.
The only two that like are sticking out to me to wait on is 2 and 4. I don't care what's everybody else. 2 and 4 I want to wait on.
Well, if 7's the only one that's necessary, then.
Okay. So, all right, so the students' rights and responsibilities, we will be voting on May 8th prior
Fine.
to Ally and Lori leaving their seats. We're going to vote on that piece, okay?
Sounds good.
And then, do the new board members have access to our manual yet? Nope, okay. All right. Okay. Action item 10.1, approval of transportation bid. Can I have a motion, please?
You sure can. I just want to make one more statement regarding what Jared said about our retreat. Having a retreat that late in the year is really tough for administrators. So I just want to make everybody aware of that. What comes out of those retreats often affects their job, and having a retreat on July 1st is a little that's not a word. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Hold on, though. What, the administrators are the ones that set the date pretty much. What is so help me understand from your perspective, is that, how do you feel about that?
I wasn't aware about us setting the July 1st date. My understanding is that we were hoping for the middle of June, but not all members could make it, and that a poll was sent out of when all board members could attend, and that pushed it that late. It is certainly a correct statement that the sooner that is set, the better, because then we start setting other things in motion for district improvement plans, communication, all of those pieces. So I think there's a lot of flexibility from the administrative side, but we also want to make sure all board members can be there.
Right, and so, but I also.
But there's also a new superintendent.
I was just gonna say, will the superintendent be there on that day?
The new superintendent will be there on that day.
Do we know if the new superintendent will be there on that day?
Well, that's the plan. They're supposed to be seated.
No, that's not my question. My question is, Jen,
Hold on 1 second, please.
well, you brought up an issue. So, trying to address your issue. Will the new superintendent be there at that earlier date? Because you said it was going to be a hardship. Will the new superintendent be there at that new date
No.
if we make it earlier?
I just wanted
They will not.
I know.
represent our administrators, and
Totally
for this
get-
board and for future boards, they await information that comes out of there, and so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Okay, I'll ask them then.
And
Do you think that the new superintendent will be there at the earlier date?
No.
Prior to July 1st?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay, so I think that's.
I guess one
kinda
of,
why we're
I
there.
take your point because.
Yeah, I think that-
So because
yeah,
here's what I'm thinking about. When you have the retreat or workshop, oftentimes you're looking for direction from the board.
Board priorities.
Exactly. And so I think we just, and at this point, we need to be cognizant of the lateness of the date because these are factors beyond our control in terms of the date that has been set. And so we'll have to be considerate of what comes out of there in terms of running to our administrators to say, we want X, Y, and Z when it's already late in the game. So we got you.
With all due respect to Dr. Sparlin, he didn't have a large role in it because it's the board retreat. He did have a section of it, but it was really the board as the board retreat. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean he shouldn't be in the retreat and he represents the district. All I'm saying is that when something comes out of there, we have often laid in front of our administrators a lot of, please do this, 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 and this. And that's great if it's at the beginning of June or if it's in May. But when it's in July 1st, that ship is sailing. So thank you for recognizing. Now I would love to give you a motion.
All right.
I am on
10.1.
Yes.
Approval of transportation bid.
I make a motion to award the regular education contract to Durham School Services and the special education contract to SEPTRANS Student Transportation.
Second.
Pending board attorney approval. I apologize. I was a little.
Second.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
All
Action
right.
item 10.2.
And actually, Mrs. Simulton, if I could, I just wanted to acknowledge a huge thank you. The Transportation Department is really looking forward to this new contract renewal, and we do have a representative from Durham School Business. They've been a very active partner from the time we've been discussing the bid until now. So we're looking forward to working with them, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Action item 10.2, approval of students' rights and responsibilities section in the student handbook. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the students' rights and responsibilities section in the student handbook as presented.
Second.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.3, approval of destruction of the audio recordings. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the destruction of the audio recordings of the closed session meetings from April 26th, 2021 and October 12th, 2021.
Wait a minute. It's through, right? Not and.
Through.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
No.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Action item 10.4, approval of the release of closed session minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the release of the following closed session minutes, which no longer require confidential treatment and will be made available for public inspection as discussed in closed session.
It's February 28th, 22. You have 3.
I do. February 28th, 2022, September 26th, 2022, and October 11th, 2022.
Second.
Mr. Ploger?
No.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye, motion passes 6-1. Action item 10.5, approval of district administrator contract. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the district administrator contract as presented.
Second.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
I'm abstaining because I came to closed session late and didn't get a chance to answer questions.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
No.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 5-1 and 1 abstention. Action item 10.6, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.